Hey, what's up guys? C4 here. I'm about to get into this next video for you. I'm going to switch it up though. It's not going to be about any cannibals. It's going to be about a serial killer who goes by the name of Steven Brian Pennell, aka the Route 40 killer. I'm doing this video on him because I grew up in Delaware my whole life and I lived on Route 40 for many years out of my life. Please like, comment, and subscribe and enjoy the video. Steven Brian Pennell, a.k.a. the Route 40 killer, was Delaware's only known serial killer, convicted of the murders of 2 Newcastle County, Delaware women and suspected of killing 3 others. Most of his victims were abducted from U.S. Route 40 in Bear, Delaware. Steven Brian Pennell was born on November 22, 1957, in Glasgow, Delaware. He died on March 14, 1992, age 34, in James T. Vaughn Correctional Center in Smyrna, Delaware, by lethal injection. Pennell's first victim was a 23-year-old nurse by the name of Shirley Ellis. On November 29, 1987, she left Wilmington Hospital around 6 p.m. where she was aiding an AIDS patient, catching a lift on her way home on Route 40. Her body was later found by the roadside by 2 boys. She was partially nude, her legs spread out, hands and feet tied with adhesive tape. There were no signs of sexual assault, but she had been seriously abused, with her killer tying a string around her neck and hitting her head with a hammer before she died. The second victim was 31-year-old divorced sex worker Catherine Morrow. On June 28, 1988, about 7 months after the first murder, around 11:30 p.m., she was seen walking down Route 40, but it was unclear if she was prostituting herself. At 6:25 a.m., construction workers found her naked body at a construction site. No signs of sexual assault were found. Like Ellis, she was killed by hammer blows and strangulation, but unlike the first murder, Tomorrow's body was covered in blue fibers. Special police forces, along with the FBI's profiling unit, concluded that a serial killer was operating in close proximity to Route 40. Police and federal agents disguised as sex workers in an attempt to gather information, with a task force of over 60 people being formed solely to capture the killer, but to no avail. On August 22, 1988, 27-year-old sex worker Margaret Lynn disappeared. A number of witnesses had seen her enter a blue Ford driven by a white male near Route 13. About 3 months later, her body was found by a hunter near the Chesapeake, Delaware Canal. Her body was so badly decomposed that the exact cause of death could not be determined, although signs of torture were visible on her remains. Finner was identified eventually by using her dental records. Initial suspicions began on September 14, 1998, when Renee Tashner, an undercover police officer posing as a sex worker, roamed Route 40 in an attempt to capture the killer. After passing several vehicles, she spotted a blue Ford 7 times in 20 minutes. She went to a more isolated area and the vehicle stopped next to her. The driver was white, with Tashner noticing that the floor had a blue carpet. The man appeared nervous, hardly looking her in the eyes, but still attempted to convince her to enter the car. She refused, claiming that she was tired, but managed to tear some fiber from the blue carpet and write down the license plate number. Upon examination of several license plates, it emerged that the vehicle belonged to Steven Brian Pennell, a 31-year-old electrician, married and father of 2, with no criminal record. 2 days later, on September 16, 1988, Michelle Gordon, a local sex worker known for frequenting Route 40, disappeared. Witnesses saw her enter a blue Ford, identified as a Pannell car. On September 20th, her body was found on the rocks in the Chesapeake, Delaware Canal. In the autopsy, it was discovered that she had been drugged with cocaine, which had caused her heart to stop before the torture had begun. 3 days later, Kathleen Meyer of Brookmont Farms disappeared. A police officer saw her get into a blue Ford on Route 40 at 9:30 p.m. He was able to write down the license plate number, which turned out to belong to Pennell's car. Her body was never found. Delaware Public Prosecutor Charles Oberly approved a police search warrant of the Pannell van, while at the same time searching for other offenses for which they could arrest Pennell. While searching the vehicle, prints matching the blood and hair of the victims, as well as the same adhesive tape used in the Morrow killing, were found. A torture kit was also found, which included pliers, whips, handcuffs, needles, knives, and restraints. Pennell was arrested on November 29, 1988, a year after he murdered the first victim, and was charged with killing 3. Ellis, Morrow, and Gordon. He decided to invoke his right to remain silent. At the start of the trial, a panel of defense attorneys claimed that the initial fiber taken by Officer Tashner was obtained illegally because it was taken from his car. Judge Richard Gebeline dismissed these allegations, saying that the carpet was visible to Tashner's eyes as soon as she opened the vehicle, so evidence from these fibers was legal. Once the fibers were examined, it was shown that they had DNA residues belonging to the victims. It was the first trial in the United States that used DNA evidence as absolute legal evidence. Gebelin had to set a legal precedent and listen to the opinions of the experts and scientists who helped verify the DNA evidence. On November 23, 1989, the jury reached a decision and convicted Pannell of murdering Morrow and Ellis, but acquitted him of Gordon's murder because of lack of evidence. The jury decided not to recommend the death penalty, but 2 life sentences. Shortly after the decision, a bouquet of flowers was sent to the prosecutor's office with a note reading, "You made us feel human again," from the women of Route 40. On Pannell's second judgment, on October 31, 1991, the court sentenced Pannell to death. Under the Delaware state constitution, every death penalty judgment requires a further hearing from the Supreme Court, and on February 11, 1992, Pannell appeared before them, demanding that he be sentenced to death. He was the only defendant in Delaware's legal history to represent himself before the Supreme Court, and the only man convicted to willingly seek the death penalty. However, he pled not guilty to the murders and spoke of the murderer in the third person, saying that the killer was enjoying the process of the murder, but not the murder itself. The Delaware State Attorney General objected to the death penalty, but the judges sentenced Pannell to death anyway. His execution was scheduled for March 14, 1992. 2 people appealed against Pannell's execution, but both were unanimously dismissed by the court. His wife, Vera Catherine Pannell, appealed the Supreme Court's decision. She received help from the local branch of the American Citizens Association and a law professor who was one of its directors. He argued as an appeal that Pannell was insane and could not fully understand the gravity of his actions, so the trial should be reopened with Pannell being barred from representing himself. The Supreme Court rejected the demand. Prior to the execution, numerous reporters tried to ask Pannell for exclusive interviews, hoping to reveal the location of Meyer's body. He turned down every request. When it came close to his execution date, he agreed to be interviewed by one newspaper, with his lawyer present. During this interview, Pannell revealed no new information, nor where he had hidden Meyer's body. On March 14, 1992 at 9:49 p.m., Pannell was executed by lethal injection, becoming the first person executed in Delaware in 46 years, and the 165th person to be executed in the United States since the death penalty was reinstated in 1976. His last meal consisted of crab cakes, steaks, corn on the cob, french fries, bread and butter, and a cola.